Hey, I'm Wendy with Loaves and Dishes, and today we're going to be making some North Carolina Brunswick stew. If you've never had Brunswick stew, you are in for a treat. It is thick and hearty. The first thing that you need to do is we need to boil some chicken, and to do that we're going to add some garlic and some onion and a little bay leaf to our water, some carrots, and then we're going to put our pieces of chicken in and heat those up and let them come to a simmer. You don't want to hard boil those, just a light simmer, and let that go for a while. There's my other gigantic piece of chicken. Hey, this is Wendy. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you'll join Sarah and I on our mother-daughter adventures in takeout. You can find Dorks with Sporks wherever you download podcasts or at dorkswithsporks.com. And we're also going to roast some pork. And you're going to do this by getting an oven-safe pan. Here I've got my big frying pan, and I'm putting in some country-style ribs. And then I'm going to salt and pepper those really good. Kosher salt. I find it's easiest to use with cooking. You don't tend to over salt that way. And we're going to add some olive oil, just a little sprinkle over the top, and some garlic powder. This will give the pork a really good flavor to put in our stew. And some onion powder. There, now the olive oil. Just a little drizzle. Pork probably doesn't really need it. It's fatty enough, but you know, it makes me feel good. So we're going to stick that in the oven. And now we're going to prepare our potatoes. You'll want to use some russets. I think these are Kennebec potatoes. But anyway, peel them really good. And then cut them into about 1-inch cubes. You know, what fits in your mouth good. You don't have to do a perfect job of peeling them, but, you know, mostly get the skin off. My peeler's really starting to get dull. It needs to go on and let me get a new one. Now we're ready to cut this up. I'm going to cut this one into about 9 pieces, maybe 12. Now this video is going to get really long because I got to cut all the rest of those potatoes. So instead I think I'll just skip that part. Or maybe not. There we go, I skipped it. Alright, we're going to put all those potato chunks. See how they're all about the same size? I'm going to cover them with water here at my sink. And then I'm going to take them over to the stove. And I'm going to cook them for about, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, just till I can easily poke the pork through. And add some salt to the water. Give it a little stir, a really little stir. And now, once the meat's cooked, we're going to pull that chicken right off the bone. Don't let any of the bones get in your stew. And if you have any skin on there, you'll want to take that off. That won't taste good in your stew. you're gonna want to let that chicken really cool well first. I didn't let mine cool so good. It was a little bit hot. For the video. Do you ever know anybody that could really pick chicken good? Like, some people can pick it, and I mean, there's nothing left. There's nothing left on those bones. And some people like me just don't seem to have the hang of it. But I get what I can. Get to the pork, you'll find, if you've used the country style ribs like I have, that they don't pull apart as easy as this. So you want to make sure that you remove any bones that you may have. And then I just used my meat cleaver to chop up the pork really well. Getting the last few bones out of this chicken. There we go. Now I'm down to my cutting board. Almost. See, it doesn't shred as easily by hand as the chicken does. Although I tried, just wasn't working out. Discard any bones you find. Alright, time to grab the cleaver. There we go. Just give it a good chop. You don't want to end up with any pieces of pork that are too large. Well, it cleavered my tongs off my table there. Because the pork tends to hold together better in the stew than the chicken does. So you want it pretty small. Takes so long with this stew. Once you have the prep done, you just put it all in the stew pot together and your work is done. There, I have a pretty big bone to deal with. The bone is something that you'll want to take into account when you're looking at your poundage. So the recipe calls for 3 pounds of country style ribs. You'll want to buy a package that has a little bit more weight than that to account for the bone. Now back to the potatoes. Here I've finished cooking the potatoes. They're fork tender, and I've I'm draining them in a colander there. One child tried to escape, so it's in the saucepan. Now I'll put them back in my saucepan. You'll see there that I put about 75% of them in the saucepan, and I left about 25% in the colander. And that's because we're going to mash some of the potatoes with a hand masher. You don't have to mash them as well as you would for mashed potatoes, but you just want them mashed up. And that is what's going to help thicken our stew. And then I'm going to leave some together in pieces so that you'll see them in the stew. All right, now we're back over at the stove. I've got my big saucepan out. I'm putting all the meats in there. And there's my mashed potatoes that don't want to come out of the pot. Come on, potatoes. Cut me a break. Now here goes a chopped onion. And I really like these Tudoroso crushed tomatoes for this recipe. They're bright and colorful and have a great taste. Some red pepper and Worcestershire sauce. Brown sugar. Brown sugar makes everything taste better. This is some Wickles Wicked Pickle juice. If you don't have Wickles Wicked Pickles, just use sweet pickles. That's fine. Those Wicked Pickles, oh, they're so good. Ketchup and corn and lima beans. Butter and fish sauce. Now you might be saying fish sauce, ooh. Just boosts up the flavor of any kind of dish you're putting together like this. Really boosts that umami flavor. Now, a lot of these stew recipes, that's all they call for, but you can see that's so thick. I'm going to have to add something to loosen it up. You could use water. I'm going to add another can of tomato sauce. Chicken stock is just the water that we cooked the chicken in. That is a terrific chicken stock, by the way. And if you just get those vegetables back out of there and freeze or can what's left, you will be money ahead because chicken stock is so expensive. There we go. Now that's totally going to loosen up and be a beautiful stew. I'm just going to turn the heat back on and let it cook down just a little bit and thicken. Oh, and we can't let this the pan that the pork roasted in go to waste. So heat that pan up and add some of that chicken stock. It doesn't take much. Half a cup, maybe a cup in the heated pan, and then scrape up what's stuck on there. You're going to have to clean that pan anyway, and that is the most flavorful stuff you've ever tasted. cannot let that go to waste. So scrape that up there, add more chicken stock if you need to, and then let's add that to our stew as well. It's like a little pork gravy kind of. Then, bonus, you've added a ton of flavor to your stew and clean your pan at the same time. I didn't want to come loose. Here we go. Had to get the right tools. Crushing up a few of those big pieces of meat. Salt and pepper. Yes, and add your potatoes in and mix it well and let it simmer for 20 or 30 minutes. And you will have the thickest, richest, most delicious stew. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.